Thank you. I'm down here. Raz, tell me a little bit about yourself first.
I'm a local here in Monterey. I'm a violinist and a singer, and I'm just really happy to represent Monterey here on Laguna Seca tracks.
Well, we're pleased and hopeful to hear you sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, with broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Excellent work, Raz. Thank you so much. What a way to kick off a full day of racing. As you can see, I've got the cars behind me. They're ready to go. So, Johnny, let's head back up to you. Full day of racing. As you can see, I've got the cars behind me. They're ready to go. So, Johnny, let's head back up to you.
Just one comment on this. James Alder's still with me, and I just want to get a quick comment before you go. I know you're busy, but what do you take? I mean, you're driving historic cars, you've done so many historic events, but to see these glorious cars, which are in their own right historic cars, but
Absolutely.
so different, so special. We've just gone from 1934 and 1936 to now, what, 95, 1990?
Wonderful era of Formula One.
Unbelievable.
And is it Formula One? And is that an Indy car back there? And was Mario Andretti driving one of these yesterday?
Yes, he was. Mario was in there. These are all Formula One cars, McLaren Formula One cars, very special ones. This is Tanner Faust, who of course is a rallycross expert with his Rockstar helmet on. But this is a car driven by Alain Prost in the day.
Wow.
I mean, just absolutely four-time world champion Alain Prost, who of course is still involved in motor racing to this day, but also just incredible.
Well,
then
I
there's
saw Mika Hakkinen was here
Yep.
yesterday. Was he behind the wheel of one of these?
Well, I'm not sure if Mick is still here, but that is Pato O'Ward, and he is, of course, the current, you mentioned Indy, but he is the current Indy driver for McLaren Arrows, and he, of course, is in that absolutely resplendent Boss Senna car with the Honda powered, again, another McLaren, and then you see the mighty Mario. I'm still not sure who's in that car with the yellow helmet. Somebody's going to have to tell me.
Well, I can't tell. With that full face helmet, you know, it's always hard to see the driver.
Yeah, we've got the, I think the, Charles Nurburg, that's who that is.
Fantastic.
I was wondering. That makes sense now, because Charles is a very, very good pedaler, and what a thrill this is going to be for him as well, because Charles Nurburg in that MP428, and then it looks like Mario is getting a chance. There he is, the mighty Mario Andretti in the 1978 Formula One World Champion, of course.
Yeah, he, of course, was the 1978.
Yes, of course. But not in a McLaren, I may add. So
No.
this is his first real try.
The Lotus
yesterday.
79, I believe, the ground effects Lotus.
Yeah. One of those cars is here, his IndyCar is here, and it's just such a great story for him. He did his last ever IndyCar race here back in 1994, and
Well, I was spectating in Long Beach when it was still Formula One. Mario was in the Lotus 79 that year in 1978, and that was fantastic. I think that was also the same year when James Hunt had his big shunt in the main straightaway and went up
Hunt
about
the shunt,
15
they
feet
called
in
him.
the air. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got a
shunt.
quick glance of the 996 McLaren F1 GT12R. Here it is. And narrowly missed out on winning the 95 BPR GT Championship. Ray Bellum came back in 1996 with the latest spec. And yeah, again, another one of those amazing McLaren cars. But here we go then, Tanner Faust leading the way in our Alain Prost car. And just a glorious sight to have McLaren, to have Mario Andretti in a McLaren full stop.
Very important that they warm up their tires in this group. They might perhaps do 2 pace laps, it's hard to say, but they got to heat up those tires to make them grip properly.
I got a great story for you. Mario went out yesterday in Jenson Button's old car, and they said, well, do 3 laps and come in. And so off he went. He did 1 slow lap. He got his head round it. He knows Laguna like the back of his hand. Heck, they named a corner after him. He did 2nd lap, 3rd lap, a little bit faster. They put the board out. He came round for lap 4. They kind of looked at him, and he looked at them, and came round for lap 5. They put the board out again in. They put it out again at lap 6, and then they just gave up.
As it should be. As it should be. Let him have as much track time as he wants. I mean, the second American ever to become world driving champion, Phil Hill being the very first.
Yep, Phil Hill, of course, from California. Mario Andretti, and it seems a long time in the distance that we've had an American Formula One champion, but I just got a feeling with the likes of Pato O'Ward, who's out on track now, and Colton Herta, and many others following in their footsteps, that I think we're about to see a resurgence both of America in Formula One, and with the likes of Zach Brown leading McLaren and effectively flying the flag for America, I think these sorts of events and getting Pato and other car drivers involved in this, and also, actually, on a serious note, giving them time in modern cars. Pato, for example, will be going to Abu Dhabi and doing the driver test, which is usually for the sort of test or reserve drivers, which Pato isn't currently. He's a current IndyCar driver. But like any wannabe racing driver and wannabe Formula One champion, he too loves his Indy but would love a crack at Formula One, as does Colton Herta. In fact, you've got to remember these guys, many of them did the if you like, the groundwork in Europe to start off their careers, so it's still very much up in their minds. And even if you talk to well, many of the guys like Marcus Ericsson now, Rosenquist, who are on their way to Formula One, Alessandro Rossi, who've been there, Indy now is full of either young drivers capable of getting a super license or have the points to have one, or have been there, done that, and been in Formula One and now racing in Indy. And we love having them here. It's great to see Romain Grosjean, for example, racing now in Formula One. But it just shows you when someone like this man, Pato O'Ward, can go wheel to wheel every weekend in Indy with Marcus Ericsson and Romain Grosjean and many others, Alexander Rossi et al. I remember this car, James, those colors, the Honda and McLaren, when McLaren, who are now fighting for 4th place in the championship, were so mighty. They were like Mercedes back in the early 90s.
Absolutely.
No one could stop them.
Well, it's an incredible story with Honda. I mean, of course, from the movie Grand Prix, Yoshimuro Honda really wanted to win a Formula One race. Of course, the driver was Pete Eric, played by James Garner. That was, and I think that must have depicted perhaps Dan Gurney. I think Dan drove for Honda. I'm not 100% positive, but look at how dominant Honda has become, as well as the other Japanese car manufacturers. And this is 25 years after World War II. So it's really an incredible story about how Honda now dominates so much of racing.
No question about it. And this MP4 5B that you see out there, the Setter car, had 6 wins. And interestingly enough, Steve Nichols had gone with Alain Prost, and Gordon Murray had gone to the F1 project for sports cars. And then it was Neil Otley who designed this particular car, the MP45 and 45B. And Ayrton Senna and Gerhard Berger, basically they created a brand new car. There's Mario
You know, those rear wings are so critical. I mean, the downforce is, you know, if something happens with the aero, you can just easily lose control over the car. I don't know if you had any experience driving a car with aerodynamics that build downforce or not, but you have to go faster than you actually think the car can make the turn in order for the downforce to take into effect. So it's very disconcerting until you get used to it.
I tell you what, for an 82-year-old gent, he's not doing bad, is he? Look at him go. Drive it like Andretti, Mario. We absolutely adore this. Down the corkscrew he comes, as he's done so many times. Go on, doing a full Zanardi as well. I love it. He's not holding back. Mario is, well, he may be in his 80s, but he's driving like a 13-year-old in terms of his glee right now. And I know that the Andretti family are tuning in to watch either Uncle Mario or whoever it is, but Michael, I'm sure, will be watching. And I know that his brother Aldo, who has passed away recently, would have been very proud to have seen this moment, because this is such an important thing for the Andretti family to be reunited in some way or another with Formula One. And Mario is having the time of his life, and I would have thought Bruce McLaren, if he knew about this, looking down, would be very proud to have the mighty Mario in his car, for sure.
Fantastic that Mario is here. I actually did not know he was going to be here. I have met Mario before. Of course, I don't know him personally, but I got a call from my good friend Corey Pesaturo, who is actually the world's greatest accordionist. I'm friends with Corey. He called me and he said that his good friend Mario Andretti was going to be here this weekend, and here he is on the track. It's fantastic.
It's absolutely superb. What a demonstration this is, and hats off to Zak Brown. We heard from him earlier. It was a little loud, but he really is an aficionado of the sport, a true collector and a true historian of the sport. And this is all his own doing to bring his team here. Whoa. And also, whoa, big moment.
Got sideways out of 11 there. Yeah.
Fastest single record in history.
But he caught it. I mean, he caught it right away with just a, you know, incredible tribute to the reflexes of these guys.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that Charles Nurberg has that speed record. And he's up there in his years too. I won't say how old, but he's been around the historic scene for quite some time. I don't know if you know him, but he's pretty handy in a race car, as you can quite clearly see. It's a wonderful display. We've got so many different Formula One cars out there. But, you know, people forget about Mario. You know, he came over here from Italy, and he raced his first car in 1959. So we're going back to the era that, you know, you were talking about earlier. You know, and it was a 1948 Hudson Hornet he drove, stock car that he built with his friends. And he won everything, the Pikes Peak, the hill climb to Daytona 500, and of course the Formula One World Championship. In total, Mario won 111 career wins.
Yeah. Well, an incredible American success story. Immigrated, pursued the American dream, and is as big a name in racing history as there can be.
Oh, without a doubt. Absolutely without a doubt. And so happy for him to be able to fulfill this. I've got to tell you the story of how this all came about, though. So I think it was Mario, and of course he's always at these events, but he was at Goodwood. And he sat in a McLaren modern Formula One car, or at least one of the 90s cars. And Zak Brown was there, and he said, "What do you think, Mario?" He goes, "You know, I'd really love to try a modern Formula One car." And he was half joking, but half sort of serious, because that's what Mario is. And Zak said, "Well, I could probably make that happen." So he kind of just didn't think about it and went on his way. But evidently at Miami last year, at the Formula One's first Miami race, he was there again with Zak Brown, but Martin Brundle was there, so they had a witness this time. So he says, "You know what you said about, you know, driving the car?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, I really like a crack at it. So Zak said, "All right." And he looked at Martin and he said, "You know, you're a witness." And so it was sealed. And so here we are. And Zak does not renege on his promises. He let Ricciardo drive a very special NASCAR, a Dale Earnhardt special NASCAR last year at COTA. he gave Pato a ride in his current Formula One car, which is more than a serious look and a nod. It wasn't for fun, but it was because Pato said, if I win an IndyCar race, can I test the car? And they said yes. And here's Mika Hakkinen, the 1998 and 99 Formula One world champion, of course, another fantastic McLaren driver. I followed his career. Now, he didn't drive this car at Le Mans, but what a step this was for Ron Dennis to go to Le Mans. I mean, it's a bit like Ford versus Ferrari. McLaren
Right.
building a road car to take on Ferrari, to take on Le Mans and win, and they did. And it was really what kick-started McLaren's real success in supercars and production-based McLaren cars, which now are, you know, many, and the perfection is there to be seen when you see the exhibition we'll have later today. But this kind of started it off, the F1.
Well, that initial McLaren supercar, the center seat, I think it was, they just called it the F1.
That's right.
You know, really incredible car, way state-of-the-art, ahead of its time when it first came out.
Well, you know, when you start putting F1 engineers and the brains of the brilliance of the guys that do the Formula One projects and say, you know, we'd like you to build a road car that's as good as anything else out there, then suddenly this is what you end up with.
Well, I would love to drive one of these supercars, but I'm a little afraid of it. They do
I'm not
everything
surprised.
so well that what my fear is that I might not like my old car so much.
No, I don't think you'll ever give that up. I don't have any fear of that. Mika's taken his time, and of course known as the Flying Finn in the day. He's a lovely man, and I'm glad he stayed around Formula One, because he's the kind of guy that could have just drifted off into the annals, if you will, and not bothered. But he's very much an ambassador and has been for some time now. And 2 times a world champion. I was telling the story yesterday that I met him as a young 18-year-old, fresh-faced Finn in Formula 3 at Donington Park, and
Nice.
it was one of my first interviews. And I had no idea who he was, but he won the race. So I trundled over and I said, congratulations. And I said, so what's the plan after Formula 3? He said, well, I'm going to go on to Formula 1, and I'm going to be world champion. And I said, wow. I said, you have a lot of confidence for a young man. And he said, no, not really. It's what my plan.
Wow. Well, you have
I've
to
never
plan
forgotten
your
it.
work and work your plan, and that's the
Exactly.
drive and determination that they have. Now, was it Mika that was involved in a pretty horrendous plane crash that he walked away from?
No, he was involved in a big car crash at Adelaide.
Okay.
In McLaren. He had a big crash at the Australian Grand Prix and walked away from that. I don't think he was involved in a plane crash.
Well, there was a plane crash with an F1 driver, and I apologize, I can't remember the name, but it was Jenson Button.
Oh, Jenson Button.
Jenson Button. Just
Another
an
McLaren driver,
incredible, crash that, I don't know, somebody was looking out after him.
Oh, no kidding. So Mario's in, Zach's there, looking and talking to Mario, but they're going to give him some more laps, I think. Now, we're starting to look at the talking of Jenson Button. Here's one of Jenson Button's cars that he drove alongside Checo Perez and Charles Nürburg at the wheel.
Well, they don't put anybody in these cars. I mean, they definitely have to be able to pedal fast. Speaking of which, did you catch the pedal car race at Goodwood? I mean, that's so fantastic with those Austin A6 pedal cars. Have you
Awesome.
seen that?
Yeah,
The kids,
yeah.
you know, I just absolutely love that. We need to introduce something like that here. Get kids on the track to start a new generation of petrol heads.
A box car derby where you build your cars and run them down the corkscrew.
Yeah, boxcar derby.
There you go.
Right.
Now this particular car, run by Jenson Button and Perez in the day, was actually probably one of the least successful McLarens ever built, which is not a great accolade, but it's still a beautiful car. I think its best result was a 5th place. But it was one of those cars that was sort of not, even in testing, Jenson was kind of not critical, but sort of saying we've got to, do we go back? I think one of the engineers, I think after testing said, do we go back to the previous car simply because they weren't sure that they would have a competitive car? And it was the last year of the Vodafone coverage of those cars, but I remember those silver cars so well.
Well, of course, if they make too many changes at once, they don't get the desired results, then they may not know what change made the difference. So, I mean, when I'm working on my XK120 and I'm trying to improve the performance, I try to make just one change at a time so I can keep track whether or not it was an improvement or going the other direction.
And for those of you who are wondering, yes, the Senna car that you're seeing there is the one involved with Alain Prost at that famous incident at Suzuka, where Prost had left McLaren and gone on to Ferrari, but they were still massive rivals. One a 3-time world champion in Ayrton Senna and one a 4-time champion in Alain Prost. And if we talk about Hamilton and Verstappen in today's terms of their rivalry, well, there's certainly the reason I'm still involved in following motor racing is that captivated me unbelievably to watch Senna and Prost go head-to-head at Monaco and around the world, and especially for the title twice at Suzuka.
Now, that was a wonderful era. Incredible competition.
So I'm just seeing a little girl running around. That's what you're talking about, right?
That's right.
Little pedal car.
A pedal car, yeah. She's probably about 6 or 7 years old. I love that. Love to see that. I have a video of that from Goodwood that I post and force anybody to see that will listen.
Well, as this exhibition continues and the F1 McLaren continues to put on a great show here at Laguna Seca, we are echoing around the hills of Monterey to the beautiful sounds of Formula One. We'll take a short break from the Velocity Invitational. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back.